Okay, you beautiful New Zealanders, you might be asking, what's the purpose of these videos? Well, the purpose of these videos is to dive deep into the Treaty of Waitangi. If we don't understand what the activists are up to with the treaty and how they operate and the strategies they have used against us, we'll not be able to counter them. I'm telling you that. They're pretty subtle and they're pretty tricky. They're very deceitful, very, very cunning, and some of their tricks are very, very subtle, but they're very deadly. So we need to know what the hell they're up to. There is a second reason why we're diving deep into the Treaty of Waitangi. What's that? So that we can get behind David Seymour's Treaty Principles Bill. The way I see it, David's bill will neutralize all the scheming and strategizing and the corruption and the spin from the activists that they've put out over the last 50 years. This is why they are so against David and his bill. They see it as a huge threat to the gravy train. In the next year, they're going to come out with all kinds of propaganda and brainwashing about the treaty and try and win the public over to their side. There's nothing more certain than that. They're going to really go for it. So watch what's going to happen. They are going to do everything they can to scuttle David's bill. If we know our stuff, they won't have a show of winning us over. We'll see right through all their bluff and bluster, and we'll confidently be able to fight their spin with facts. But if we're wobbly on our knowledge of the treaty and what they're up to, we leave ourselves open to being duped. True? Well, we don't want to do that. With that in mind, let's dive into today's video. I think it's going to be great if we do a timeline here so we can unpick what's happening and how these activists operate. There's Hobson. Well, on Monday, the 19th of January, 1840, this is, Hobson leaves Sydney bound for New Zealand. He begins drafting the treaty with his secretary, James Freeman, on the journey to New Zealand. Wednesday, the 29th of January, Hobson arrives at Waitangi. Thursday, the 30th of January, the drafting the treaty progresses. Sentences, phrases are being formulated, words are constantly being swapped out and exchanged. We know that's how things work. I do that all the time. The treaty drafting team, Hobson, Busby, Clendon was the US consul here, Freeman, who you know about, and various missionaries, I won't go into all of them, are paying strict attention to Lord Normanby's brief given to Hobson when he left England on August the 20th, 1839. This brief is basically Hobson's job description from the British government, so they had to be very careful to follow Normanby's brief. Friday the 30th of January, the drafting continues. Saturday the 1st of February, the drafting continues. Sunday the 2nd, it continues. Monday the 3rd, now we're getting into some really interesting territory. The drafters think they have the final draft complete, but Hobson wants changes. Hobson wants lands, estates, forests and fisheries excluded from Article 2. Hobson wants all the people of New Zealand included in Article 2. Get that. Tuesday the 4th of February, the changes are made, what Hobson wants. Final English draft is complete. We have closure. That night, the treaty in English is translated into Maori by Henry Williams and son Edward. Wednesday the 5th of February, at noon on the lawn at Waitangi in the big tent, the treaty is read to the chiefs in English and Maori for the first time. The chiefs discuss the treaty all night with Henry Williams and his son at the marae at Waitangi. Thursday, the 6th of February, 52 chiefs signed the treaty. So what you have here is you have 2 days and you have 2 versions of the treaty. You have the 3rd of February version and you have the 4th of February version. Now, we said and we know that the 4th of February version went missing. The 4th of February version was Hobson's choice, if you want to put it that way, because it was the treaty that Hobson finally agreed on. The 3rd of February version was made up of discarded notes, and we call that the Freeman version because that's what he did. So here's the James Freeman Rogue version. Her Majesty the Queen of England confirms and guarantees to the chiefs and to the tribes of New Zealand and to the respective families and individuals thereof the full, exclusive and undisturbed possession of their lands and estates, forests and fisheries, land should be in red by the way, and other properties which may collectively or individually possess, so long it is in their wish and desire to retain the same in their possession. Then you have the Littlewood English final draft. The Queen of England confirms and guarantees to the chiefs and the tribes and to all the people of New Zealand, see the way that's included? The possession of their lands, dwellings and all their property. Now, the one on the left, the James Freeman Rogue version, that's the one that is a February the 3rd version. The one on the right is the final English version, February the 4th. Man, this one, the one on the left, the Rogue James Freeman version, this is based on 12 pages of discarded notes. It's the 3rd of February version. Does it match the treaty in Maori? Absolutely not. It's miles off. You wouldn't recognize the two. What about this one? This is the final English draft. It's the 4th of February version. It's the one that Hobson wanted. It's the one that the British Parliament wanted. Does it match the treaty in Maori? Yes. For all intents and purposes, it matches it perfectly. So if you want to put it really simply, this, the February the 4th version in English, was swapped for this, the February the 3rd version in English. That's, if you want to really make it simple, that's what's happened. Why did Maori activists grab with both hands the James Freeman Rogue version of the treaty, the one made from the discarded notes on the 3rd of February? Why did they insist that it be the official treaty in English in the Treaty of Waitangi Act 1975? The US consul in New Zealand in 1840, James Clendon, had sent 2 copies of the final English draft to America in March and April 1840. So we know the final English draft was around, but Clendon had it, and he made 2 copies to send to America, and you know what? They're still in America today. Why did our government not retrieve these copies to use them as the official English version of the Treaty of Waitangi Act? They knew they were there. The answer is they succumbed to the pressure from activists in 1975. That was Bill Rolling. T.E. Young of the Native Department in 1869 completed a brilliant translation of the treaty in Maori back to English, from Maori back to English. Why was this not used in the Treaty of Waitangi Act? Pressure from activists again. See? They were able to cause MPs to cave in. Our MPs are mostly just complete cowards. Activists had to have a version of the treaty in English which varied from the treaty in Maori so they could say, oh, the translators in 1840 did a bad job of translating the final English draft of the treaty in Maori. This led to the idea that the government would need Maori expert translators, that's activists, to tell us what the treaty in English really said. See how it works? These guys are very cunning, they're very slippery, they're very, very deceitful, and the New Zealand public needs to wake up to what we're dealing with here. These are cunning people. This in turn led to the activists being able to distort and contort the meaning of the treaty to suit their purposes. See? 1, 2, 3, boom, boom, boom. Because the final English draft of the treaty was not found until 1989 and the Treaty of Waitangi Act was 1975, we could not fact-check their so-called English translations against the February 4th, 1840 final English draft. See that? Well, now we can. So what have we found? We found the activists have been lying about what the treaty says for 50 years. They're totally corrupt. This is why they have fought tooth and nail to keep the Littlewood draft of the treaty, the February the 4th draft, hidden away in Archives New Zealand. And who's in charge of Archives New Zealand? This lady. Yeah, this is Anahira Morahu. She's the, what they call the Paumanaki Chief Archivist at Archives New Zealand. See the way they put strategic people in at the right places, the Labour government? Anahira was previously president of Leanne's Library Association. She was responsible for having the National Library dump 600,000 overseas published books because they had nothing to do with Aotearoa. See, you've got a fox in the hen catch. She's an activist. There was another reason why Maori activists wanted the James Freeman Rogue version to be classified as the official treaty in English. What was that? Well, again, because it varied so much from the treaty in Maori, they were able to claim that what was needed was principles of the treaty. Principles give the Maori activists wriggle room. There was no wriggle room in the treaty in Maori. It was so clear. The activists wanted wriggle room. By the way, the Waitangi Tribunal doesn't even use the Maori version. They use this English one because they can get more stuff from it. Did you know that? And they say honour the treaty, and the Waitangi Tribunal's not honouring the treaty at all. They don't even refer to it. So the idea of principles was invented by activists. Principles are deliberately vague and ethereal and can be interpreted many different ways, which is exactly how the activists wanted it. You see? We've just been tricked all over the place. Really, the principles are weapons invented by activists to plunder New Zealand. The so-called principles have allowed the activists to make the treaty say what it does not say. With all this in mind, it becomes obvious why the Littlewood final draft of the treaty needs to be officially recognised as the final English draft of the Treaty of Waitangi. Because it matches the treaty in Maori perfectly, we could say, there is no need for expert Maori translators and no need for treaty principles. Thus, 2 of the main instruments of corruption used by activists against the government and Kiwis could be nullified. We'd be able to revert back to what the treaty actually says instead of being at the mercy of activists telling us what they think it says. So, let's wrap this up. How does David Seymour's bill relate to all this? David's bill has 3 principles. Number 1, that the government has the right to govern for all New Zealanders. Number 2, that the government will honour all New Zealanders in the chieftainship of their land and all their property. Number 3, that all New Zealanders are equal under the law with the same rights and duties. Now you can see the theme that runs through those 3 principles is all New Zealanders. That's what Hobson was on about. So therefore, David Seymour's 3 principles represent a true and accurate summary of the entire treaty as it was understood by all parties on February the 6th, 1840 at Waitangi. If David's bill goes all the way, and you know what, I really hope it does, it will mean the fog will clear and the corruption will cease and the gravy train will come to a grinding halt. Bring it on. See you in the next video. Please like this video, please share it, please give financially to what we're doing. If you think it's important, then help us, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you for all your support. Please share this video with everyone everywhere. The mainstream media should be reporting on the issues I am raising in these videos, but they're not. Why aren't they? Well, they're corrupt. Why are they corrupt? They are collaborating with Maori activists. There's no doubt about that. In the final analysis, the people of New Zealand, that's us, have ultimate power, not the politicians. Did you know that? The people can kick out the people in power and they can put them into power. How are we going to do that? Well, awareness is the key to change. If enough people in New Zealand become aware of the issues I am raising, we can save this beautiful country. So share these videos everywhere so that come the next election, we can vote the right people in and kick out the people who are destroying New Zealand.